Does Monday at the office feel like a storm? Not with Microsoft Copilot. That feeling when Copilot gets everyone up to speed instantly? It's sunny again. When Copilot simplifies complex data so your teams can act, that sun's shining on a beach. And when Copilot uncovers hidden insights, you're on that beach with your people, and you find buried treasure. That's Microsoft Copilot. Learn more at Microsoft.com/AI for all.
Dreaming of a better sleep? Tossing and turning is not your destiny. And Ollie is here to help. Ollie invites you to sink into sweet, sweet slumber to improve your mental and physical health and overall wellness. More than just melatonin, Ollie's ingredients help you unwind your mind for a delightfully dreamy drift off. Sleep is on the way at Ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
Hello, and welcome to Dyslexia Devoted, the podcast dedicated to building awareness, understanding, and strategies to help those with dyslexia. I'm your host, Lisa Parnello, dyslexia therapist and founder of Parnello Education Services. Join me as we dive into today's episode of Dyslexia Devoted. Hello, my friend. Welcome to episode number 92 of Dyslexia Devoted. And today we're talking about teaching kids self-sufficiency. Now, I work with kids from all sorts of different backgrounds whose parents have all different styles of parenting. And one of the things I see the most massive gap between kids sometimes is their level of self-sufficiency or lack of self-sufficiency. So when I create these episodes, the inspiration comes from all sorts of different places. A lot of times it is from something the kids have done or something that a parent has asked me that I think that the rest of you guys will like to learn from. This week's actually comes from my own household, where I was working on some projects around my house with my mom. And so there were some things that broke and weren't working. And my instant reaction was, okay, then I'll just fix it this weekend. And then I realized that's not actually everybody's first reaction. A lot of people avoid dealing with a problem, or they don't want to call out a plumber because of how expensive it is to hire a plumber these days, or all sorts of different things. And my first reaction was, okay, well, I installed the toilet in the first place, so I can pretty easily fix it again. If I did it once, I can do it again. And I'm pretty self-sufficient. And this stemmed from my childhood and how I was raised to be very self-sufficient. I grew up with a single mom, so if I didn't fix it, it never got fixed because I'm more mechanically inclined than my mom is. Not that she wouldn't have done it. She will happily hand me tools and give me the things or tell me what should happen, but I tend to be stronger and more mechanically inclined to actually complete the actual task. So that got me thinking about the students that I work with and how self-sufficient they are or are not. Because I have the full gamut. I have some kids who can't do anything for themselves, including brushing their own teeth. And if I don't remind them, they probably didn't get their teeth brushed this morning. Yes, I know I'm not their parent, but I'm still asking them if they brush their teeth because they haven't learned their own self-sufficiency to brush it on their own without somebody reminding them. And then I've got the other end of the spectrum, which is I have a couple kids that could pretty much run an entire household by themselves while their parents went to work. And not because they have to, they're very well loved, very cared for kids, but their parents have taught them some very distinct self-sufficiency where they could take care of themselves. They are responsible enough to make sure that you don't do anything that's going to break anything and, keep an eye on your little sister, that kind of thing. And it's so interesting how wide that gap is. It makes me think about some of the reasons why this can happen. Why do these kids have such a huge gap in their level of self-sufficiency? And we have to think about what kids come to my office. They all have learning differences, every single one of them. If you are in my office, it's because somebody probably could not help you somewhere else. And that's how you end up with me. And so it's not that one kid has a more severe learning difference than the other. It is more along the line of what got expected of them despite those learning differences. Because sometimes without meaning to, we sometimes lower our expectations of kids because of their challenges. And that's really not what we should be doing. If you have high expectations of a child, they will do everything in their power to meet those expectations. If you have faith in them and you say that they are perfectly capable of doing this thing, then they will think that they are capable of doing this thing. And the flip side is true. If you act like they can't do it themselves and that you have to help them, you have to baby them because they couldn't possibly do it on their own, then that's how they're going to act. They're going to wait for somebody else to do it for them. So let's talk about how we can work on that and some of those original causes. One phrase that we are actually taught in college as teachers, which I don't know if it's still being taught, but it definitely was 20 years ago, which was learned helplessness. And I have a love-hate relationship with this phrase. Learned helplessness is essentially a kid has learned if they're just helpless long enough, somebody will come around and help them. And so therefore they don't do something because somebody else they know will eventually come around and help them. The hate part of this phrase is that sometimes people blame it as learned helplessness when really it's a kid not getting the support that they need. So they've given up because it doesn't matter because nobody's going to help them anyway. They're actual helpless, not learned helpless. They really just can't do it because they are not given the right supports. So this is where that phrase is a little bit debated. So I'm going to go more along the direction of self-sufficiency. What can this child do for themselves? And is it what they should be able to do for themselves at this age? So if you take two 10-year-olds and one of them can't even remember to brush their teeth and the other one could probably raise their siblings very successfully, what is the differences between those kids? What are the things that make it so one kid is so much more successful than the other at being self-sufficient? The first thing is expectations. If you don't expect them to do it and you always help them with everything all the time, they will never get better at doing it on their own. And this is something that I see far too often, and a lot of times it's very well-meaning. You're helping them because they need help. But then the tipping point comes when, what if they don't actually need that much help anymore? Originally, they probably really did need that much help. I don't doubt that. No parent is like, or teacher, it's just like, hey, let me just do everything for you because that sounds like a fun idea for me. No, they do it because the kiddo really could not do it on their own before. And this is where we need to have a gradual release. As they get better and better at something, you do less and less of something. I noticed it the other day when I was working with one of the girls that she really needed my help all the time for every moment of her assignments. And then the other day, I realized we hadn't spoken in 5 minutes in my office because she had become so self-sufficient that she only asked for help when she needed it and could do the rest on her own unless she could not figure it out on her own. And then she would ask for help. As opposed to when we first started, she really did need help with everything all the time. And then it became, she thought she needed help all the time. And I said, no, you try it first and then I'll help you. You really can't do it. And then slowly and slowly, she got better and better where she needed me less and less. And that was the goal. And it's something that I train teachers to do all the time too, is that you need to teach the kids in a way that they can do it without you. If they always need you in order to complete that task, that means you didn't teach them well enough. Your job is to teach them to be successful without you. You will not be their teacher forever. You cannot help them forever. You cannot go to college with them, sitting in their pocket, popping out whenever they need you. That's not really what's going to happen. Although I do have one of the girls that jokes that she will continue working with me through college. And she's like, you know I'm going to text you in college to look over my essay before I submit it, right? I was like, we'll talk about it, kid. So that gradual release of slowly expecting them to do more and more as they are capable of more and more is one of the best things you can do. The next thing is to give them tools in order to do it on their own. A lot of times we think we have to help kids because they have learning differences, when really all we have to do is give them the tools to help themselves. I know I have several kids who've gotten very good at asking Alexa or Siri, whoever lives in their house as a device, what the answer to something is, or how to spell something, or kids who know how to use autocorrect to use their cell phone to figure out how to do something. There was a girl who was voice texting her mom the other day so that she would remember to do something. And then I realized the voice text actually had nothing to do with mom. It had everything to do with the fact that the girl was using strategy so that she wouldn't forget to do something later. So I taught her how to use voice notes on her phone so she doesn't have to needlessly text her mom and drive her mom nuts with useless text messages that are really voice messages for the kid to listen to her on her own later, but she doesn't know what to do with her little voice note to herself. So I taught her how to use actual voice notes so that mom is more sane and the kiddo is still using the awesome strategy of taking voice notes to remind herself to do things later. It is not that the kids don't need help. They need strategies and they need less and less adult help. Because the thing is, we end up raising an entire generation who always needs somebody else to help them do something all the time and they can't do anything for themselves. Do we really think our society is going to be super successful when everybody relies on their mom forever? That's not really going to work out so good. There's even a book that I've been dying to read, but it seems a little off the point for me because I don't actually have my own children, and it's How to Raise an Adult. And it's one about how parents can raise kids to be more self-sufficient and how to become good adults. Because a lot of times we think that being a good parent or educator means taking tremendous care of the kids in our care, when really our job is to teach kids to be successful humans. And some of the ways that we can do that is teaching them self-sufficiency. So one thing I challenge you to do is to think about the kids that you work with in your life and what is something that would make your life and their life a lot easier if they became more self-sufficient. Pick one thing that you're going to raise your expectations that you think that kid could probably do on their own if they were given a little nudge. Now, I'm not saying completely remove all the supports, so we do need accountability involved, and we need a lot of praise and pointing it out when they do it on their own. So the other day, the girl that was working very independently and didn't talk to me for 5 minutes because she can do her entire assignment without me for 5 straight minutes, I gave her a ton of praise for that. I pointed out how she always had to sit 2 inches away from me when she's a bigger kid, not like a little tiny pumpkin. And just a few months ago, she always had to sit right next to me so I could always help her because she really couldn't do it on her own for a while. And as we built up her skills and we gradually released her on her own, I made sure to make a really big deal about it the other day about how great she did without me, how she didn't need me for every single second, and how much more self-sufficient she's gotten to be able to use strategies and do things really well all on her own. All right, that's it for today's episode. So to recap, we have kids who have a massive gap in their self-sufficiency. Some kids can't do anything on their own. They always rely on a parent or adult. And other kids who can pretty much raise themselves. And what are some of those things that can be done to build up those kids who are still really struggling? How can we make them more self-sufficient? The first thing is raising our expectations. What is something you're doing for them that they could probably do on their own? The next thing is to give them tools and strategies. What is a tool or strategy that a child who does genuinely need help could utilize instead of another adult or human to help them? The next is to praise and support when they are starting to become self-sufficient and point out how much you knew that they could do it and how proud you are that you can see them doing something on their own and how they're growing up and becoming such a big kid. And it's funny, I joke with my high schoolers, I'm like, wow, look at you being a big kid now. And they think it's funny, but they enjoy it. They need the compliment. They need to hear that they're doing well, especially those middle schoolers who are like too cool for school and are like, whatever. And you see it in their face and they get that sly little smirk like, thanks. I like that you told me that nice thing. Like they act like they don't need to hear it. But sometimes those middle schoolers are just as happy to get stamps and stickers as the little guys are. They just pretend that they're not. So remember that even those middle schoolers who will give you a dirty look when you compliment them, they still hear it. They still feel it. So make sure they know it is done with love and you're not just suddenly making them do things on your own because you're being mean to them. It's making sure that they know you're having them do things on their own because you know they can do it. You know they can be successful and you know they don't need as much help as they used to. And point it out, you used to need a ton of my help. And actually, you're pretty awesome now. You've gotten so much smarter, so much stronger. You've worked so hard for this. Now you don't need me as much anymore. And I'll help you on the things you do still need me for. But there's these other things you don't actually need me for all the time. You're pretty good at them without me. And my favorite phrase is, try it first. If you get stuck, I'm here to help you. Just hearing that you are here to help them when they get stuck or if they get stuck is sometimes all they need. Sometimes they don't really need you. They just need to know that you are there if they do need you. And that can be enough to teach them that self-sufficiency, to know that you think that they are enough and that you don't really need me. But if you do change your mind and you do need me, I'm here for you. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And as always, send me your topic requests. You can find me on DMs, on Facebook or Instagram, or always email me at lisa@parnelloeducation.com. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you want to learn even more about dyslexia, check out parnelloeducation.com/courses. See you next time.